We are on now. Yeah, we should probably. Yeah, stop.
Welcome back to All Things Acura with Matt.
And I'm Justin. And here we are. Another episode, Matt.
Episode 3.
Yeah.
It's going good so far. I listened to it on Spotify today.
Yeah, well, that's cool. We finally got that
no.
out. Finally got it set up. So if you don't need to watch us on the YouTube, you can now catch us on Spotify or pretty much anywhere you find podcasts.
Other than you said.
Yeah, I don't think we have Apple set up. Sorry, Apple people. We will get that. That's an Apple person.
I'm an Apple person. Yep.
We'll get that going. It's just taking a minute to roll everything out, but we'll get it rolling.
Yeah, it was weird. I was listening to it this morning, and I was like, "Oh, that's really good information." I like forgot for a second. It was me. So
right,
which is good.
It's good that you thought your
it was all good.
It was all good. So in the world today, we are going to hit on some more feedback. You guys are giving some good feedback and some really good questions that we're going to touch on. We're going to talk a little bit more Integra news. We got some new, other Integra stuff we're going to touch on.
Some stuff that no one knows, not even us, apparently.
Right. So we got some great Integra news that we're going to get into. And then also programs. Got some important program information. So if you're currently actively looking right now, there's some stuff that you need to stay tuned for because it's pretty important. And by the time this gets out, and hopefully it only takes us a day or so to get it up live on the air, but you'll only have a couple days left because that program cycle is coming to an end. But we'll get to that. So we got all kinds of comments and feedback. So really appreciate all that.
Yeah, we're just going to go through a couple of these here. It's always nice. Obviously, right now we don't to go through these and just kind of highlight people that took the time to comment. Obviously, it helps drive what we talk about a little bit because again, this content is for the viewers and the listeners, so we appreciate that. But John just said thank you for providing this information. Keep them coming. Great discussion. Some other stuff on the MDX, which we'll talk about a little bit. But the one thing I know we'll talk about this a little bit more is the topic about the Integra. So we'll talk about the Teggy, as was affectionately called. Apparently, maybe that was
Teggy is the term in the world. So if you didn't know that.
Was that a thing in the past?
I don't know if it was a thing in the past. Okay. I think it's a thing now, right? They talk about the old Teggy.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. In Teggy information, we also had Bernard who had a question. So I guess as we kind of look through these things, there's some questions here too. The question was, the model says it's in transit. Does it mean those are purchased already or can be purchased? And I know we talked a little bit about that before, maybe not too as in depth, but we'll go ahead and answer that question here. Yeah,
so Bernard, that's a fantastic question. We did talk about that on the first episode, and we'll kind of come back to some of these things because I know that we rambled on for 45 minutes and on some of these, and so that's a lot of information to take in and remember. But just recently, I think this is just over the last couple months, Acura and Honda actually have allowed dealers now to list incoming or in-transit units on their websites. And so the one thing that, and we mentioned this before, but I want to bring it up again, is none of those can be marked as sold or available. Mm-hmm. So all the units that you see on our website, whether it's marked in transit or not, you just have to inquire to find out whether it's already spoken for. Unfortunately, they haven't solved that yet. Yeah. And again, we'll go back to rewriting how this should be done and not. And when they put us in charge, we'll make sure we fix it. But
right. Yeah, but the best thing to do is to call because we've gotten, it seems like over the past month and a half or so, we have gotten a lot of people calling asking if those cars are available. And I think it's because we've had a lot of people who, they didn't put those orders in originally and now there is more inventory kind of coming out there, not unspoken for inventory, but stuff kind of showing up and that's, people thinking it's available and whatnot, but just something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, so the in-transit does not necessarily say it's available. It just means that vehicle's coming in, so you can kind of see farther down the road than what we used to be able to. Mm-hmm. Because before, that vehicle would not show up in our inventory until after it was here and after the vehicle was actually invoiced to us. So it could be a day or two after it even arrived. So
right.
We're glad it does show that, but you do need to call your local dealer to see if it's available.
Correct, yeah. Yeah. So Scott, thank you again. I'm glad we could answer your question. But yeah, so obviously patience is a virtue here right now. Obviously trying to get your name in, on a car so you can make sure it's ordered.
Yeah, Scott waiting for his MDX.
Yeah, that's right. So that's just each car is obviously a little bit different with that. So just kind of be patient. We've had I had some folks yesterday who picked up their car that put their deposit back in late October. So obviously they waited a while and the car just got here like a couple days ago. So it's just different per model, per car. Next one I kind of want to talk about. Tyrese had said that his local dealer was charging $5,000 more for a TLX Type S. Found that another dealer wasn't charging the markup, but the total price came out to be more than the local dealers due to all the add-on fees and mandatory accessories. And we touched on this a little bit last time with finding a dealer that makes the most sense for you in terms of doing business with. Are they marking their car up and how they're selling their car? So I don't know if you want to touch on that real quick.
Yeah. I think he mentioned that you guys talk about. I did find one that didn't put an excess additional dealer markup above MSRP, but then they added a lot of accessories and fees, which made the car more than what it was,
right,
even with the markup. So yeah, I guess there's a difference though of just paying 2, 3, 4, 5,000. There's cases of even more of that over MSRP and not getting anything additional for that versus a dealer that's trying to put value-added items on the car. And I had assumed that he's speaking of that they tried to put some accessories on their vehicle, which in turn would probably be Acura accessories on the vehicle, which has in turn, raised the cost of the car. That's going to happen. They want to maximize obviously their opportunity with the vehicle, but people want a lot of that stuff too. So they're kind of get an idea if they have the vehicle available, they're going to put that on there. Yeah. The other piece of that, is again going back to the order. If you find the dealer that's willing to order the vehicle for you or get you on an order that they already have coming in, and you can agree that MSRP, well then all that stuff goes away, right? I mean, because you're agreeing on a car that doesn't have those additional items already on it.
Right, exactly. And I know we had that TLX Type S here that we added the carbon fiber kit to it, right? Yeah. And so that's where, obviously, like Justin said, a lot of dealers are trying to maximize what they're doing on the vehicle. And as we see it, is that's added value, whereas there are dealers that are just adding on market value money to the vehicle, which isn't giving you anything other than, hey, you get to pay more for the car. And some of those accessories, I don't know, some of those accessories maybe you could take off, but again, that's relative to the dealer. If it's certain things that maybe the car would sell better with it on there. I know we did that. We put, like I said, the carbon fiber
interesting.
thing.
We put that package on, and then the customer went and added, I think, an additional $2,000 worth of stuff that we weren't going to put on the car.
Exactly. So. And with ordering, like you had said, like people. Obviously, if you order something, you want to make sure you try to agree to whatever numbers there are in front of you prior to the car getting there, whether it be certain addendums or certain packages or certain accessories that you want to add to the car. Make sure you do that at the time. And I think that's also why maybe some dealers kind of stopped taking orders, because they did want to try to maximize what they were selling in the car, saying, okay, we're going to add this feature, we're going to add this accessory, we're going to add this product to the vehicle. And just so that way they can maximize that sale. So
the one thing we can't speak to, and we're not going to go outside of our bounds as much as we can, is I know a lot of states, and we're talking to a large audience, so a lot of states have a lot of other fees, right? State of Ohio has one set documentary fee that we can charge, and our regular title fees, which are very small, but that's it. And I know some of the other states, when you get outside of that, they have some pretty large numbers that they can add to the price of a car, and that's what they're allowed to do, and that varies state to state, and that's we don't have those fees, and if we were going to add anything, it'd just be additional dealer markup. It wouldn't be in the sort of a fee per se. So I can't speak to those other states, and I don't all I can say is. That's your area of negotiation if you want to find the right deal.
And we dealt with this a lot, prior to. We're in Ohio here, which is a pretty consumer-friendly state, and there's a lot of ones out there where someone will say, well, they're less than you on the price, but I'm like, okay, but their fees are maybe up to $1,000, right? And so it's like, well, really, at the end of the day, our price is really less if you add it all up. But
so the golden nugget in us, helping you as far as a consumer in the buying process is just make sure that you get a total out-the-door price when you're shopping for any type of vehicle. Let's forget the Acura conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
Because any type of vehicle, if you're just going based on whether they're selling it for MSRP or the sale price of the car, well, there's so much more that can change in that big equation. Like Matt said, we always get people coming to us from other states saying, well, your price is higher, but those states also have very large fees that they charge on top of that. So, it varies. I'm not saying we're right or wrong for as far as the amounts are concerned, but make sure if you have that out the door number and you're comparing my total cost, tax, title, everything, fees included, across the board, that's the only way 100%.
Yeah. And that's another rabbit hole in terms of pricing, because like lease prices and things like that.
We'll talk about that as we go in the future episodes. This is to help you guys get get the best deal you can and maximize your money as well,
and navigate this current landscape, because it is very different than what you typically and negotiations are obviously few and far between, and what you can negotiate is kind of slowly going away at the moment, and until inventory picks back up, and so you have to kind of pick and choose what you're actually trying to compare. We have a gentleman, Sean, from right down here in Columbus, where right outside where the Acuras are made. So excited to see him up here to check out the MDX. I know, like I said before, we do have one here to check out. We use it as our demo. And then this is another interesting one where it says, Lars, I ordered a base all-wheel drive just because the standard features are all I care about, which is a great reason to get a base model. Yeah. The MDX has a ton of great features that are standard. It's one of our favorites. But he said, I love the Type S motor, but I'm not paying 20 plus grand more for it. Well, yeah, I get that. Like it is quite a gap between what a base model MDX goes for, which is about 51 now, and then you're looking at a you can get a Type S, the regular model, not the advanced model, and you're at 68. So yeah, I'd say 17, 18 grand. But at the same time, keep in mind you are also adding a lot of features to the vehicle. So the base has a ton of stuff, there's no doubt, but you are adding a lot more.
Yeah, I think, to speak to him, I'm on his side. This new MDX comes with a lot of standard equipment. I don't know that the base package would be the one I'd go after, but I know we have a lot of people looking for those upper trims. And if you're coming out of a 16, 17, 18 MDX, RDX, you don't need to jump to the Advance or the Type S Advance to get a lot of equipment. I mean, it's overkill. I mean, come spend an afternoon with us, and we'll show you the features on the car and how they work, and you might turn around and go, okay, what's below that? We're not trying to get you to spend more money. We're actually trying to get you to spend less. Not to mention, I think as far as availability, you're going to see those middle trims, Tech Package, A-Spec be more available than the Advanced. Going back to the whole chip problem and supplier problems, those advanced models, those Type S models, I mean, they just have so many more components to them than the other ones. And a Tech Package MDX has a lot of equipment.
Oh yeah, and it's a popular package. So that's what we sell. I don't know what percent it is now.
Yeah,
it seems like 70% or something like that. Yeah. So it's what most people buy. So if you're buying the car and resale value is a lot greater on a Tech Package than it is a base model, even though feature component wise it's getting closer and closer to that gap. But
interesting, even percentage wise, it's still higher on a Tech Package than it is as you move up the ladder, because you lose some of that value that you paid more for an advanced package or what have you.
Absolutely, and not to mention, obviously, it sounds like you had already ordered a base model, but base model orders are kind of going away. So for now. But we'll see what happens, obviously, as the year goes on. Last little comment that we want to bring up, a gentleman that kind of lives near us. This is Lee. Is owned an ILX for eight months now, and he loves it. Actually, apparently bought it from us, and he was hoping that the ILX would stick around. Obviously, a lot of people have liked that 2.4 liter four-cylinder that's in that car going to the turbo. Who knows? But
yeah, that 2.4 with the 8-speed dual clutch transmission, that powertrain was a really, I think, just a really niche, neat powertrain, and one that, I kind of wish it would stick around too. I guess I'm on your side, Lee. But I know that the whole industry, across the board, not just Honda, but everybody's moving towards a smaller power plant with turbocharged, to maximize that power to rate ratio, get more efficiency.
Yeah.
And it's going to, unfortunately, I don't know that the experience is going to be less. I mean, so far, I think even with the TLX and the RDX, people have been quite happy with those engines.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has had any complaints yet or anything like that. And I get it. Like, my dad was an example that didn't want another turbocharged engine after being with an Audi for many years. But it's a Honda and Acura product. Hopefully, obviously, they get it. They are doing it the right way. The engineers, they know what they're doing. But yeah, that was a neat little like niche engine transmission combination. And I think it was underrated. I think a lot of people who didn't drive the car right. I think if you really had that car and drove it, I mean, it was 201 horsepower. I mean, it's quite a bit of power in that little car. So, but yeah.
So there's still a chance. I know we still have some Integras coming in. And
Alexis.
Did I say Integra?
Wow!
I've already shifted.
He's already
gears.
made the transition.
Right. I have Integra on the mind.
Shifted gears. Ooh.
We'll talk about that. Good segue.
Anyway, so yeah, we do have some ILXs coming. Yeah, you said
we still have some ILXs coming. There's still ILXs in the system. I think we're 30, 45 days of ILX production still before the line changes over, so to speak. So there's still
and their premium A specs is.
Yeah, we have premium A-Specs. I think premium and premium A-Spec are the only two trims that might be available at this point, which are the most popular. So
Oh, yeah. There's a couple other ones that I want to address. The last one leads into what we're kind of going to talk about next. But someone asked about the wheels, the flatback, like the flat black paint on the regular Type S, can you get the same wheels on the blue Type S? So the answer to that question is you probably can purchase them. And I'm bringing this up because I think in person the Type S Advanced wheels look a lot better than what the in person than they do in pictures and stuff like that. But also you're also probably looking at you're going to pay a lot of money just to get those wheels. You're probably looking at like $3,000-$4,000 just to get those wheels, and then what do you do with those other wheels? So I don't know if that's worth doing, but yeah, they do look good. And the final thing is gentleman had asked about his lease coming up. So more good info here, just about any other. Appreciate that. More good info than just about any other source. So I appreciate that. My MDX lease is about to expire, and I plan to buy it. So that is something that we're going to get.
So we are going to touch on Lease-end and options for Lease-end. That's going to be a topic we're going to talk about today. Sorry we didn't mention that earlier, but if you've stuck around, you're going to get the information that you're going to need if you have a lease, especially an Acura lease coming due.
Yep. One
quick news that we do want to touch on because it just kind of came out today, and there's a whole overlying theme as far as wanting to get you information, and that's why we're spending the time to do this. There's no bonus on our part. We could not do it and have extra time in our day. It wouldn't make any different change in our lives other than take less off our plate. Mm-hmm. But we want to get you guys information. We want to feel like we want to get the information that is as most accurate as we can. There was a bunch of headlines today, Matt, and I was just sharing this with
headlines.
Headlines today.
Not like...
Yeah, talking about...
not blurbs and rumors.
Talking about that the 2023 Taggy, or Integra to be specific, will get super handling all-wheel drive.
A lot to be said there.
Yeah, so we have exhaustively asked this question to everybody that we know, our contacts at Acura, over the last since they've announced the car.
Yep.
And nowhere has anybody ever made a peep about that car having all-wheel drive. Would they love it to have the super handling all-wheel drive? Absolutely.
I would.
I would too. Right. But it is not on the radar from anything we've heard about. So there's a couple articles that just popped up, and the torque report. There's a place called Integra Talk. Who knew?
Oh no!
I didn't know that was a thing. Teggy Talk, and a place called Truth About Cars, and they've all gotten a hold of the screenshot of a dealership up in Wisconsin, and I don't remember which one it was. And
Doesn't matter.
Where they had sent out that, the new Integra will be available with super handling all-wheel drive, and maybe they're claiming that they have inside information on that. I hope we're wrong and they do have insider information. There is something coming, but from all accounts that we've heard, it is not going to be offered with the all-wheel drive. That doesn't mean that in the future it couldn't be or wouldn't be.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that there won't be a version, maybe an S version that
sure.
They offer that. But in the initial plans, that's not a thing from anything that we know about.
Well, it's funny you say that because on Jalopnik, which I know is another, I'm sure they're getting their information from the same resource. And who knows, maybe someone was just typing in something on this dealer website. We don't know.
Yeah.
But everything that we have seen, that is not the case that it's going to be getting all-wheel drive. I don't even want to keep on this subject because, we feel like at least up here in the northern states or Midwest, we do feel that all-wheel drive should be maybe a staple in Acura's lineup. Across the board, super handling all-wheel drive. If people who are Acura fans here, what an incredible system that is. And so we felt like that's something that would set the brand apart if you incorporated that throughout the entire lineup. Now, that would be great. We all live in these great dream worlds. But again, that's based upon what we know. We do know it's going to have the 1.5 four-cylinder turbo engine that's out of the Civic. We know that, so that's exciting. But all-wheel drive, at this point, not a thing.
Not a thing. The only thing they have confirmed is the manual transmission, and we've had talk with them about that. The availability of the manual transmission across the lineup, we don't know, but it will be available with a manual transmission.
Right.
The 6-speed manual, I think 6-speed manual.
6-speed, yeah, and we don't know if it's going to be like the lower trim levels or the upper trim levels, or if it's going to be available across the entire lineup. We just don't know that yet. We haven't had a chance to go through the orders yet, so. I think until we get there, and we'll update, that's something we will do, is that once we do that, we can update our viewers and listeners and say, hey, here's what we know. This is what we can order, right?
As soon as we have that information and we can release it, we're going to get it out to you guys, hopefully as fast as anybody. And it's interesting how these articles come out. I mean, it came out and it's all over, I guess you'd say the news wire. I guess that's where they picked that stuff
Yeah, the
up.
Auto News Wire.
And now all of a sudden it's rampant, and I'm sure tomorrow I'll see 5 more articles that say that. And it's one person just reading after the next person, and nobody has an answer. Acura does not confirm that information, so
little game of telephone.
Yeah, right, right.
Right. Well, yeah, I heard it as this, and we hear a lot of that stuff. And as I talked to someone earlier about how Honda and Acura do things, they don't really a lot of stuff that's rumors without them. It doesn't really ever come true.
No, I say that Acura and Honda have done the best job across the industry of keeping a secret of any manufacturer I ever met out there, and they just don't release the information, right?
And a lot of times we might know something 2 hours prior to my customers knowing stuff. So
yeah, it's. They are good secret keepers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's Integra information. Don't forget that March 3rd, we're now only a couple weeks away. Thursday, 3/10/22 is the reserve tool. We'll go live on Acura.com. You'll be able to leave a deposit for your Integra. Those will be a $500 deposit, and the other piece of that I don't know that I touched on all of this last week because I kind of just got the information at the same time. Not all colors and options will be available for that pre-sale of that deposit. So when you go up there will be limited packages and colors available for that pre-order.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they won't be available. You'll need to get with your dealer, but for the initial launch of that vehicle, they'll limit those packages and colors.
Yeah. And
then I'm sure it's a part to do with availability and rollout and probably all kinds of stuff.
I was going to say, maybe in a normal year that would have been different, but right. That's something that could have changed. But yeah. So we'll keep everyone up to date on that.
All right. So if you have an Acura lease and you're just not sure what to do because there's not any cars to go out and release.
And there's going to be a lot of information here that is true across the board.
Yeah, really across the industry, leasing has gone wild as far as what your options are, what you can do with a lease. So one thing I will start with is all the manufacturers, other than a couple, have restricted who can actually purchase that lease. So in the past, I'll give you an example. In the past, if I had a Acura lease or a Honda lease, and I wanted to go buy a Lexus, I'll use that as a good example.
So I was afraid you were going to say another brand, but we'll use Lexus.
We'll use Lexus. And Lexus used to just be able to inquire to a Honda or an Acura and get a payoff amount and be able to purchase that car the same way you would as a consumer. Well, they last year when the shortage was really starting to take full force, pretty much every manufacturer, all but a couple, and I mean a couple, I can't even think of which ones right now, have gone to this where you have to get your payoff only at an Acura or Honda, respective Honda dealership. So you can no longer take your Honda lease to a Honda dealership and they can't pay it off.
Right.
And so what they're trying to do, and I understand that might be anger some people, frustrate a lot of people, but what they're trying to do is keep those units with their appropriate manufacturer.
Correct.
And so whether that's, Honda, Acura, Ford, Infiniti, you name the brand, most all are doing that same thing. They're only allowing that payoff to come from that dealer, right?
And they're trying to protect their dealers to make sure that, hey, we know you don't have new units coming in, but hey, just go ahead and make sure you try to keep your used inventory coming in like a normal year.
Right. And so they're just trying to now. So what's that put you as a lease consumer? What can you do with that lease? You still have some options. So if you want another Acura, obviously you want to try to plan ahead on this. If you have a lease that's coming due in 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you're not too early. Get in there, get something figured out with your local dealer because you don't know how much time is going to go by. If you have a lease coming due next month, 2 months, and you're running out of time and you don't think there's a car available, the good news is Acura will let you extend your lease. So there's a bunch of different options you can do for extending your lease.
You extend your lease and you continue those same payments. Now, the one thing we don't know, and because we haven't contacted Acura, is how much leniency they have there with how many times. Because I think before you could only call 2 times to extend your lease. So there was good and bad to that, where you could say, okay, I'm going to extend my lease for 6 months or 3 months, or you could do it up to a year. Is what Acura allows.
So I'm pretty sure that's still the same guidelines. You can do up to a year extension. Yeah. How many times you can extend it, I don't know. In other words, if I extend it for 3 months, can I extend it for the rest of that year? I don't know. I'm sure you can in this climate. I think they're going to be as flexible as they can to allow you to get back into another Acura. Right.
Exactly.
Outside of that, I don't. If you have other plans other than getting back into another Acura. As far as an extension past there, I don't know what you have to do. You have to make a decision of whether you're going to turn that vehicle back in or purchase that lease, which right now is a favorable thing to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at, you're talking, in some cases, almost $10,000 difference between what you might be able to purchase your car for to what you might buy a comparable used car for with similar miles. Obviously, it's kind of beneficial because that car and you have less miles. It's a lot less money. So that is an option. Another option is to buy it and maybe try to sell it if you want to do that. And I know we've run into that a few times, and there's some words of caution there.
Yeah. So if you're going to buy out your lease and then go try to sell it, remember that you still owe sales tax on that remaining balance of that. So you're going to have X amount of dollars you're going to have to add to whatever you owe on that vehicle. And if you lease, this is probably not anything new to you. You probably already know that. And yes, you can still sell it. There's still profit to be made in this climate right now with these cars where they're selling above and beyond that. One thing we have to caution you, though, is it takes a while to get a title when you do buy out that lease. So keep in mind that allow yourself some time, a long runway for this to happen. We see people that buy out their lease without going through us, which they can buy their lease directly through Acura. They can do it however they want. But it can take up to a month and a half to 2 months to get a title for that vehicle. And remember, you really can't sell that car or resell it to anybody else till you have that title in your hand. You have to have possession of that. So you got to look out. What's the market going to look like in 2 months? From all things considered, as we sit here right now, it still looks like it's pretty favorable. But it probably won't be the same. Good, bad, otherwise we don't know where it's going to be. And we're at the peak of the hill. I think that's the important message here is we're at the peak of the mountain. In other words, as the supply starts to come in which it is this year, as it starts to come in, those values will slowly start to go down. We're actually, the article I shared with you guys last week, and I wish I could bring that back up in my memory again, is because I think that was from, I just blew it. It was Cox Automotive. Their study shows that we are now losing between 2 and 3% value, wholesale value, or value of your trade-in each month. So we're climbing down because the manufacturers have picked up pace, and as the new cars start to flow in, the value of those used cars starts to decline. It's not going to be a bloodbath quite yet, but as far as a sharp drop-off, but you're at the end, we're going down. In other words, as we look out, we might see a little spike in the spring because again, we talked about before, as the weather changes, more people come out, more people get excited about buying a new car. We'll see a little spike, and then we're going to see that slowly decline throughout the year or so.
Yeah, and so that's up to you as a consumer to say, okay, here's my options. And that's why, obviously we want your car. If it's an Acura, we want to take that car in. And we want to try to be competitive. We know people are shopping their car out there, and so we understand, hey, we know what your payoff is. We know where you're at with what that is. You can, obviously you can sell it back to us, and hopefully there's some profit there for you. There's some, some sort of margin there. You can try to negotiate a little bit. So that's in your corner. So use that to your advantage when you're trying to, sell us back your car. We want your car, and we know you want to sell it to us. But that's obviously, and most people aren't even turning in their leases anymore.
Yeah, right. So most people aren't just turning them in and dropping them off their dealer. They're taking advantage of that. So here's a couple things you can do. Obviously, if you have a source that will offer you X amount of dollars for the car, but there's a dealer, an Acura dealer that has the product you want, the easy thing to do, and I think this is beneficial for everybody, is to let them have a chance to give you whatever or match your offer in total dollar amount, because that'll be much easier for you, especially with that lease payoff. They're the ones that are going to need to facilitate that. Make them responsible to get that title to the vehicle and take yourself out of all that. Take your equity and buy your new car. If they can't match that, then you have to go to the other plan of purchasing that vehicle, having the outlay of cash, tax, and then facilitating that at the end. But make sure you work with your dealer to try to get that extra money out of it. It's easier on you're going to save yourself so much headache, and maybe they can't give you quite the same, because there are some places out there that are paying just top dollar for these cars,
insane amounts.
Yeah,
and I think I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think they started doing. These numbers started getting worse and worse because they realized people weren't selling their car back to these places, even though they were still giving more. The value just wasn't there. So they had to say, okay, how much more do we have to go above and beyond what maybe dealers are saying? And that's why I think you've seen a little bit of a jump, because they still need that inventory.
So you got to think of the non-franchise dealers out there. I mean, there's just a ton of them. And you have a lot of the CarMaxes, Carvanas, Vrooms.
We buy any car.
That's how they survive. They can only survive by buying cars off the street and taking some trade-ins, but they don't have a franchise that feeds them vehicles to resale.
Right.
So they have to effectively try to pay more than everybody else to get that inventory.
Yeah.
And we'll touch more on that as time goes on. But make sure that you've done your due diligence with your dealer, because going down that path with a lease vehicle is going to be much more complicated than if you just own that car outright.
Right. And we love to have that discussion with people. Listen, we may not give exactly what these crazy numbers are out there, but at least give your dealer an opportunity, because we want the car just as much as as you want to sell it. So that's where that conversation has to happen. Don't get offended, but we're here to make sure it works out for both parties.
If it's close, if it's a few $100 or whatever that might be, and that's different to everybody. But if it's close, I mean, it can save you months worth of time and lots of money that you have to lay out there on the line to be able to make that happen on your own.
And this happens a lot. We get calls my Lincoln lease is coming up in the next 3 months, and I'm like, well, do you know what you're doing with your car? Love to sell you what we have, but you got to figure out what you're doing with your car, because every brand is different. I don't want to call it any brands or anything like that, but there are some that they make it very difficult to get out of your lease, and they make it so you have to return it back to that specific.
Yeah, and that's
store.
kind of what we started the conversation with is, and hopefully it's clear. It's clear in our mind. Hopefully we're conveying it clear. But those brands, all those brands are not allowing you to just take that car anywhere. You need to go back to that brand or that manufacturer to either if you want to get rid of the lease,
Right.
or have them buy it out, or you have to buy it out on your own.
Right.
Those are really the only options. Before, I think Lincoln and Ford did that anyways, and there were several brands that made you do that anyways.
Yeah. Infinity was like that.
Infinity was like that.
Yeah.
I think and Nissan, and now all the brands jumped on board and said, "Look, we're gonna try to protect our own dealer body and our customers, and only allow them to come back." And I know that's a sour subject, but it is what it is. Now you just got to navigate with what's out there.
It is a sour subject, and you're right. But keep in mind, when you lease, you don't own that car. It's not yours.
Right.
It's really
This is
not.
true.
So,
Very
I
said.
get it. Like, I get it. You want to be able to have that freedom and leniency to do what you want to do. Like, hey, that's my money. Well, really, it's kind of half your money.
Right.
So
It's not your,
yeah. So, but yeah, it's just something definitely to keep in mind. That way you can start early. Like Justin said, 5-6 months is definitely not too early at all. Obviously, as you get, in the 3-month window, it's pretty tight.
Yeah, the great news in this market with the values of where cars are at, pre-owned cars, there's a great opportunity to exit a lease early.
Yeah.
And really, across the board, I don't know, we were only seeing mostly ours. Again, we just talked about, we don't see a lot of the other brands because they don't, you really got to have a plan for that when you come to us. But, 5, 6, 8 months, year early is not out of the question at this point as far as being able to exit that lease and get into something else. On the other lease subject, we'll touch on real quick, and then we'll kind of get off of it. But lease prices for the new ones obviously are much higher than what they were because they're not supported leases incentives as what they were.
What's funny is that this is what leases would look like on a normal
unincentivized. This is kind of what they look like.
Yeah.
Where a lot of us that have leased a lot of cars in the past are used to subvented lease rates, meaning they're using special rates and residuals and programs to get those payments down lower than what they normally be. So a lot of people say, well, now is just not a good time to do that. Well, we'll give you a quick snapshot of this as our 2 cents. But if you have a lease that you can get out of and pull some equity out of that lease, some money, again, what we're willing to pay you versus what you owe, and apply it to the new vehicle, and get within a moonshot of what you're paying now, you should definitely jump on that. It's not a bad idea. And here's why it's not a bad idea. Because what none of us know, Matt, myself, or anyone else in the industry knows, is what's going to happen in 3 years. Right? We do not know where this market's going in 3 years. We do not know what those used car values are going to be out there. We have no idea how many chips are going to be available. There's going to be probably 10 more chip plants on the planet by 3 years from now, right? They're in a panic to build more chips.
I mean, more chips
we
than
have
we know
no
what to deal
idea.
with.
There could be oodles and scads of cars, and there could be a glutton of used cars, which means the value of yours just went from way up here to way down here, right?
Right.
So if you can get back into another lease and it makes sense for you, in other words, you can take what you have, get back into another one, the payment fits your budget, it's a great idea. Because if there's ever been a time that we don't know what the future is going to hold, it's right now.
Well, yeah, so 3 things to kind of talk about that. Most people are getting equity from the car, let's face it.
Yep.
So let's say it's $4,000. We'll cut the difference between like 3 and 5, which is typically what most people are getting. Okay, that $4,000 that you typically were getting on the other side of things, right, is now coming from your trade. So is it really that much different? Acuras typically are in our world, we're not like discounting the cars a ton of money, like $5,000. Well, that money's coming from your trade now, which you didn't have that money before. So that's like new money. So apply that toward that. Now the other side of that too, and I lost my train of thought where I was going with that. So like although lease payments are very high right now, that residuals, the manufacturer have kept that, so it's still a percentage of the MSRP.
Yep.
And that residual, it's still obviously a good buy right now and maybe 3 years down the road. So keep that in mind. Just because you're paying higher, you're going to go back and look at, I can still buy this car for, 55, 56% of the MSRP. That's still a good value. I mean, and that'll probably be the same, I'm guessing, 3 years down the road.
Yeah, so and we can dive in more into that subject. We know that not everybody leases their cars, so I was even talking with Matt before we even started this. I said, well, this is going to appeal to certain people, and other people they're going to say, okay. Not for me. I don't lease them. And if you have a vehicle, obviously now is a great time to trade it in. If you are interested in a new one, we'll get why. And I mentioned this in the last one, where there's a lot of people saying just don't buy a car right now. It doesn't, it's not a good time. But depending on what you have, right?
That's true.
It can make a lot of sense because you're going to max out on your value versus the cost of the new one, and we'll break that down a little bit more on another one because again, we went for quite a while. Yeah, and we have one topic that we really have to talk about. That's because our programs are coming down to an end, and I know we covered incentives on the first episode, and we talked a little bit about the different incentives that are out there. And there are some incentives still out there. And this program cycle ran from the beginning of January, and it goes all the way till the end of February. So February 28th is the final day to take advantage of these programs.
Which today, as of this, it's the 23rd of February.
Yeah, 3rd, and we might have this out hopefully tomorrow. So you have a handful of days to take advantage of this. Reason why I'm bringing it up is every quarter or so we see a drop in residuals. They've already told us there's going to be a drop in residuals across the lineup. So what happens if you're interested in leasing and you're a lease person? That residual is going to drop, whether it be 1 or 2%. And if you start talking about a vehicle like an MDX, 1% of 50,000, right? It's $500. 2% is $1,000. It's going to cost you that much more in just a week from now. Yeah. And that's not in your dealer's control. That is just how the ball tumbles. It happens every year. As we get later in the model year, those residuals drop. The rates, I don't see the rates coming down. Again, everybody's well aware that we expect rates to go up. So now we're making that gap even bigger. Residuals dropping, rates going up.
And no incentives.
And no
so
incentives.
They're not offsetting
that. Payment is getting much larger than what it is right now for the same vehicle. So, reason why I'm going to bring that up, A, that you know about it. B, Acura has a neat little program that they call the Acura Commitment Program, where you can actually lock in today's rates, purchase or lease, for the next 90 days. Yep. And I apologize that we didn't talk about this sooner. We might have touched on it, but it wasn't coming close to the end, and now it is here. And so, if you were interested in getting something, or you're on the fence, go to your Acura dealership, get something on order, whatever it might be. They get your information, lock that in for 90 days because you can lock in today's rates for a future vehicle.
And basically, they have to have numbers agreed upon and a credit application.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, really. I mean, obviously, you have to leave a deposit with your local dealer for whatever vehicle, but you just got to make sure that you have something worked out there with them, and they get you signed up on that program because it could be. I mean, it could easily be $1,500 difference on a lot of these.
Well, that's important for people not only who are like, oh, I'm going to go look at an MDX now, but people who also bought. Put their deposit down back in January, who didn't, weren't aware of that.
Yeah. So if you have a vehicle on order, and your dealer, you might make a phone call to your dealer to make sure that they have you locked in on this program. If you're interested in leasing, and that's a thing, right? The rest of it, I'm not sure that it matters as much, but those lease, it's going to have a pretty good impact on them. And it's just as time goes, it's the same every year. It just now it feels much more important than what it did in the past. Right?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So, all right. So lock in those programs. Make sure you get with your local dealer on that.
And then I made that video. So last thing, we'll get off those subjects.
We got to talk about that.
Thanks for sticking around for as long as everyone has. If you're still continuing this point. Last thing is I appreciate everyone who watched the video that I made and Justin has made on the MDX Type S. I did do a driving impression video. I'm in the middle of editing it, so keep an eye out for that. I don't want to talk too much about how it drove. All I can tell you, it was more than quick enough for an MDX. It was fun to drive, and that's all I'll tell you for now.
Yeah, so you'll have to catch that video that Matt has. One little side note, because we were having a neat little conversation about this earlier, was I saw in some of the comments, and I'm sure you guys just brought it up.
Yep.
That they don't think it's loud enough. The exhaust is too quiet on the MDX Type S. So we won't spend a ton of time on the subject. It might be. Maybe it is too quiet, but that is the vehicle. And I think the majority of people will appreciate that this is a performance SUV that, SUV of its size that has some performance that isn't obnoxious.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, who wants to start up their... I get it. You want to hear the loud, rumbly car. Are you going to get an MDX for that? I mean, really? I mean, go get something else that is going to give you the exhaust sound that you want. You don't want to wake up your neighbors. Hey, kids, get in the car. Wah, hear this exhaust from across the neighborhood. So, but I'll tell you, like, if you watch the video inside the car, you can hear it. Like in the video, I actually was surprised. I didn't know what it would sound like until I got back in. It sounds good. The car is spirited. It's fun to drive, and I have no problem with the exhaust sound.
Yeah, I think they're great. I think they sound great, and I think it's just that perfect blend, and that's what Acura tries to do. It's this blend of performance and luxury. It's not just performance or just luxury, right? They're trying to blend the two and give you the best of both worlds. Yeah. And a lot of people say, well, that's no identity when you try to do that. And no, it fits a lot of people because most people don't want the one extreme or the other, right? They want a little bit of that. And for everyday driving, which most of us are going to do with the vehicle, it is phenomenal. Yeah. It meets your needs and more.
Right.
Sure, take it out on the track with car and driver. You probably won't be as excited, right? As that $100,000 whatever package.
Mercedes AMG, whatever.
Right, but that's not what they're trying to be. They're not trying to make a family hauling track car.
Right.
And I think that's what people think is, I'll be able to swap out my wheels and go on the track. That's not the car. Right, and if you have $70,000, I hope you have enough money saved to buy your track car so you can go out on the track.
Yeah, that's true. Right? That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a different car for that, and it's not necessarily the MDX. Like I just imagine taking my family because I like the MDX Type S because I want something with more performance. I've always been that way. Like I want something nice, but I want to have something that gets me excited when I get behind the wheel. But if I'm taking my family in that car on the vacation, 3 hours, 4 hours into the ride, and you hear "wah" from the exhaust. I don't think that's what you want.
Right, and that's not what most of our customers would want. So, and so I think Acura did the right thing. It does have the active exhaust. So as you switch modes, it does get quieter or a little louder. Again, what we're speaking of is a lot of people said it's just not loud enough. And
it's fine. Teach his own. Drive it yourself. Check it out.
Check it out. It's a phenomenal car. Watch for that video Matt's got coming out. Thanks again for sticking around. We're working on actually shortening these, and it's not working.
No, it went the opposite way.
We went the other way. Yeah. The topics, we want to get this. We just want to provide the information, and there's a lot of stuff to provide, a lot of stuff to get out, and we'll do our best to get what we feel is.
Keep the comments coming. Yes. It helps us, and we appreciate that people are watching because I know as I'm doing this, we're not getting paid to do this. So,
By the way, there's monetary value to this. Put some comments in there. Tell us what you want to hear about in the world of Acura
and automotive.
And automotive in general. We'll definitely do our best to tell you what we know right here from the showroom floor.
That's right. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks again.